self-aware and having a desire to choose something differently, whether it's alcohol, shopping, whatever that is for you, food, I don't know what that is for the listener, right? But the conversation is the same. It doesn't mean that the substance necessarily has to be, but the conversation is the same. Just being self-aware, taking that first step.
Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this. Well, hey, welcome back, Small Steps, Big Wins family. I'm so excited for today's conversation. I'd like to welcome Ellen Frazier. She's owner of Frazier Lending Group and founder of Booze Free Babes, a sober sisterhood, I like that, and host of the Booze Free Babes podcast.
Tongue twister.
That is a tongue twister for somebody like me. Yes. Ellen is a mortgage broker, a real estate investor, and founder of Frazier Lending Group. She also has the heart behind Thriving Sober Sisterhood and podcast, inspiring women to embrace personal growth and alcohol-free living. With over 2 years of sobriety, congratulations on that, 100-pound weight loss, big congratulations on that. And life rooted in mindfulness, which I know how great that is. Ellen empowers others through her signature coaching programs and mission-driven speaking. I love it. So Ellen, welcome to the podcast. I can't wait to dig into what we're going to dig into. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad that we connected and we're already having so much fun.
Hey, I would love if you would share a little bit about yourself and where you are today, and we'll bounce from there.
Okay, great. Well, physically, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, but that's where the Booze Free Babes family originated. And that's also where my husband and I reside, and we have our real estate and mortgage businesses. So thank you, Sue, for having me on. I'd love to share more about our Booze Free Babes community. And that's really the heart and soul and mission behind this podcast interview today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, talk about how you got to that point and why you created what you did.
Okay, I love sharing the story because it actually, looking back, right, that's when we really get to reflect on our journey and what's happened thus far. And so Booze Free Babes was really born out of a post-pandemic world. I had decided to eliminate alcohol from my life, and we'll get into the reasons for that in a minute. But during that time frame, I looked around and I was like, I just want to have a couple of friends to maybe go have some coffee, some lunch, do some yoga on the beach, some fun stuff like that, right? It doesn't revolve around alcohol. Charleston is a hospitality city, and a lot of our events are, centered around food and bev and all those things. So we have a lot of really great restaurants, and along with that comes really great cocktail programs. So, it's really fun to find other beings that want to do stuff without alcohol. So what we did is we started out with just a little Facebook group to meet some local women, and then dry January of 23 to 24, it was January of 2024, Booze Free Babes exploded onto the global stage. We became a global sensation basically overnight.
Really?
So, yeah.
I want you to talk about talk about that story too and how that happened. So
I think the timing of that was perfect, right? Because we had just rolled out our website, our social media campaign, and that was just so much fun. And I want to talk a little bit more about the importance of intentional fun and joy in our lives.
Sure, absolutely.
That journey was just so much fun. I was having a blast with one of my really great friends, Kim Russo, On Brand Designs. Anyway, she was working on my website and my logo, and we were just having the best time. I sent a call out on social media, and then the next thing that happened is that we blew up, right? And so in that moment, I feel like I had a really big decision to make, Sue. I really had to ask myself, is this a fluke? Am I going to do anything with this? And am I the version of myself to take this membership to the next level? And so I really had to step into answer the question, and then also step into that version of myself that could carry this mission forward.
Sounds like you were heeding the hero's call, where you have that burning deep inside of you where it's like, okay, am I going to take this? And so what prompted you to move from theory to action? Because a lot of us, we will just get to the theory part and not sure whether or not we're going to take the action.
I love this moment in time. That's where the magic begins, right? So for me, it was the internal dialogue. It was the conversation that I was having with myself, and I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy in my life. I wasn't happy in my career. I wasn't happy in my marriage. And we just survived a pandemic, right? We didn't know if we were going to die the next day. I mean, let's just be real. And so that might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but there's a real emotional component that happened during the pandemic. So when you look around and you start to question, is there something more, right? What else is out there? What am I lacking and why? That's the pivot turning point, the tipping point. When we start to have those inner questions, that inner dialogue, that's a magical place to be. And we need to sit in that, because that is actually the beginning, the very first baby step beginning of a new journey. When we can actually become self-aware that, hey, maybe we aren't happy in our lives and we want something more. That is a huge moment of being self-aware that we can take action. The choice then, where the courage comes in, is the next step, right? We already made the decision that we're unhappy. We're self-aware of that, right? Now it's up to us to make the decision to do something about it.
How did you know it was booze-free babes? How did you know that that's what your next thing was to walk into?
I gotta say, a lot of this is divine, okay? I don't even know how to explain it other than that. I can't even explain where the name came from. It just came to me. It really did.
Wow.
I think in those early days of sobriety, I spent a lot of time alone, as a lot of us do. And I want to get into that too a little bit, about the main purpose behind Booze Free Babes, right? Is finding joy and fulfillment in our lives, and doing that in community, having fun, intentional fun. Because when we're having fun, especially intentionally having fun, we're following our passion. And when we're following our passion, it ignites something huge and beautiful inside of us. And then that begins to expand. And when that can expand and we can be filled up with that joy, right? Then we no longer need to drink. Or at least that was my experience. I felt like once I was able to lean into that fun, that joy, that fulfillment in my life, and there's a few steps in between that we're probably missing, but once I was able to find that for myself, now I feel like I don't want anything to come in between my peace and my joy, right? I want to keep this going. It just feels so good.
Right. You have a couple things in there. Can you, you mentioned the word intentional fun. A lot of times we just hear the word fun. What's your definition of intentional fun?
When the babes first came on the scene, we would dress up in pink tutus. We had on pink gloves, the whole thing, total 80s vibe, that was a lot of fun. We were having fun. And I did that intentionally. I did that on purpose. So let me make fun of myself so that not make fun of myself. I would probably dress up in a pink tutu anyway, but let me show up with this big bundle of energy and joy and fun so that I can be an example for you. I want to be living proof for you that there is fun to be had in an alcohol-free life, right? So transitioning that to intentional fun, that's a new concept for the babes community. And the reason for that is we are doing this intentionally. We are intentionally choosing to have fun. We are intentionally choosing to add joy back into our lives, because when we walk in that fashion, that pathway, then we're following our passion, right? And when we follow our passions, that's when we become alive inside.
Wow. Talk about the, to become that alive inside, you have to have that quiet and alone time. So you mentioned that before. Talk about how you discovered that that is what you needed and what your alone time looks like and how you protect that.
When I first decided to eliminate alcohol from my diet, right, that was a very lonely time. I was alone. I also was recovering from weight loss surgery, which was a catalyst to me choosing an alcohol-free life. And so during that time frame, I was at home. I was alone. I was recovering. I mean, when I say alone, my family was here, obviously, but that was a very lonely time period. And I would say I probably was depressed because it was during, I don't know if you've heard the expression like dry drunk or whatever. It was a period of me just eliminating alcohol, but not knowing really
What to do with
next.
yourself. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. Because you can be surrounded by people, but still feel alone.
Right.
When you don't have people along with you on your journey.
And so I think that that's really how Booze Free Babes was born. I was lonely. And this time around on my sober journey, I wanted to try it without being in the 12-step rooms. And so I had to build or create a program for me. I had already started subconscious integrative therapy, and I have to give a lot of credit to that, because when we are courageous enough to you remove the alcohol, guess what? There's still some underlying stuff that we get to address, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, that was really important to align my early journey with subconscious integrative therapy so I could work through some of those events in my life that I needed to get beyond, right? And then once I was able to kind of do a little bit of that shadow work, dive deep in myself and figure out what are some of those reasons that maybe I drove to drink to begin with.
Right.
Addressing those issues, clearing out some of that baggage and making room in my life for so much more joy and fun. I had to put down the negativity backpack, right? I had to take that off so that way I could create space for joy and fun in my life.
I love that negativity backpack, to remove that. What did that process look like for you to remove the negativity backpack? Because like the natural default in anything is to go down the negative road. And I think just by the fact we're human, we do that. So talk a little bit about that negativity backpack and how you just like got rid of it.
Can I just say that that's a daily practice, right?
Yeah. As soon as I asked the question, as soon as I said it, I'm like, you know what? It's not something that we're just going to face it every day. It's like fear. Fear is the same thing. You come across it, you're going to have fear. You never 100% eliminate it because you're always going to be in different situations. So it's never going to go away. So yeah, the same thing. It's hanging out there, but putting the mechanisms in place in order to deal with it is a different story. So talk a little bit about those, not the elimination.
I am all for therapy. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for that. If you feel that there's something that you need to work through, then it's your responsibility to take action. Right? Nobody's coming to save us. And it's our responsibility. Like it's our platter. How much do we want to carry? It was my backpack. How many rocks did I want to continue to carry around in that backpack? Am I going to forgive myself for things that I did differently, right? Previously, I want to walk a different walk today. I want to show up a different way today. I want people around me to know that they can trust me and that my word is right? It's with integrity. And so I think that, when you take those steps towards that inner work, that it's a very personal journey, but it's so worth it. And so my journey looked a lot like starting with the subconscious integrative therapy process. I had to uncover a lot of layers of damage, baggage, whatever you want to call it, self-hatred, right? Negative self-talk. That's a lot of it. And that is a daily practice. I'm not going to say struggle because I don't feel like it's a struggle anymore, but it is a practice and it is something we have to be mindful of, right? I mean, imposter syndrome, you name it, that negative self-talk thing comes up a lot. Even if I'm in yoga shavasana or something, I'm laying there and I'm like, did I do my best in this practice? Or what am I doing after this? No, that's not the intention of this moment. The intention of this moment is to rest and be aware and to be present with self. And so a lot of mindful practice, I feel like was a great accompaniment to my early sobriety. And that is still very much a part of my daily routine today.
Yeah, I would think so, because mindfulness is that practice of actually being present in the moment. And so when you're present in the moment, you're capturing your thoughts, you're capturing your words. And I hear you on the importance of what we say to ourselves matters. So,
Agreed. I mean, here's the thing. I was talking to a colleague earlier this week, and she had just achieved a really great milestone and she wanted to share it. And I said, why wouldn't you share it? Who else is going to share that for you? Who else is going to be your fangirl? You've got to be your own fangirl. I said, I'll be your fangirl. Obviously. I mean, I'm just a cheerleader by nature. I love
right.
celebrating, cheering people on. That's just a
Yeah.
real part of my personality. But let's take that a little bit further. Like, if I'm not going to be my own best friend, if I'm not going to be in love with myself, how can I expect anybody else to do that for me? They can't, right? You can't love me more than I love me. I have to be in this love relationship with myself. And I know that might sound a little odd for maybe some of the listeners, but just try it. Even last night, there's always a certain bit of nerves that comes along before you have an interview like this, right? And so I just had to say a quick prayer and ask for my higher self, the best version of myself, to shine through in this interview. And I do that every time I have an interview like this, because it's so important to be connected.
Sure. You talked about self-love, and I am guessing that you weren't always in that place of loving yourself and loving who you are. Talk a little bit about how you gained that for yourself and how you now, and the differences that you've seen along the way, especially in how people relate to you. I'm making an assumption here that it wasn't before, like you didn't have that self-love for yourself before, and then you've gone through this transitional process. And the reason I ask is because we hear a lot about, well, you got to love yourself and stuff. And even me personally, even I struggle with that. Sometimes I don't always love parts of myself either. And it does radiate on the outside what is a reflection of what's going on the inside. So thoughts.
I love that. I love that. You're right. It does, right? We reflect that out.
Mm-hmm.
Self-love journey. Let's see. That negative self-talk, where does that come from, right? It's programming. It's something that somebody said to us way long time ago. Like, that foundation came from somewhere. And that foundation is what we need to, for me, that I had to overcome. And that can come from anything, right? I mean, that can come from childhood, that can come from life experience, that can come from teenage years. I mean, I'm not going to get into like the age group and the different formation of, different things, but that limiting belief or that programming that we acquired along the way, it could have been a teacher, it could have been a parent, it could have been a mentor, it could have been a sibling, who knows, right? Mm-hmm. But we pick up this programming in our early developmental years. And then that programming continues to play on repeat throughout our lives. And then that groove in our psyche just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And we just keep, getting deeper and deeper and into this groove. And so it takes a sort of shift to imagine a record player, the grooves of a record, for those of you that know what a record is, right? That are listening. Oh my goodness. Imagine if you bump a record player and then it skips. Right? And it skips out of that groove and it plays the next song or whatever. It's kind of like that. Mm-hmm. I had a very deep groove that I needed to bump off my path to try to find a new way of being. And that's probably the easiest way to describe it. And so sobriety, subconscious integrative therapy, weight loss surgery, the combination of all of those things simultaneously, because they all kind of happened around the same year, 2022. I'll just say, as an aftermath to the pandemic, I just dove all in on myself because I knew I needed to. And then I learned that I was worthy of it. When I learned that I was worthy of overcoming these limiting beliefs and these old outdated programs of my childhood or earlier life, then it was like, okay, now we can make some significant change. And then through subconscious integrative therapy, we replace those limiting beliefs with positive ones. I am worthy of being loved. I am so deserving. right? I do have everything that I need already within me. All I have to do is be courageous enough to find it, right? So some of those types of themes that I think was really important to replace that language with positive language. And then as we already discovered, Sue, it is a daily practice. And
Yeah.
being self-aware of that negative self-talk as soon as it comes in and switching the gear and getting it out of our heads, right? Like being an observer of our thoughts. That's an interesting thing that I just thought about myself. Why would I think that I'm not worthy of XYZ?
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's going deeper on the questioning. So there's two things out of that. Like the first is, like I just said, going deeper. Like why? Why am I thinking that I'm unworthy when I am? Where is that thought coming from? It's who's telling me I'm not worthy? And to continue to go down that questioning path and get curious about the record player that's playing over in our minds and bumping that off of that needle. What the second thought or question out of that would be for you, what would be your suggestion, or what would be the small steps that you took personally and that you would encourage others to do to find that those thoughts, those negative thoughts going over and over in the head, and then replacing them with positive?
Now, I chose to go with a professional route on this with subconscious integrative therapy.
Sure.
But let's just empower the listener for a second, because if they're already having those questions within themselves, then they've already taken the first step. I think that's what I really want people to take away from the call today, is that if you're already asking, like, how can I up level? How can I improve my life? Or what is something that is a tape playing over and over again? For those of you that aren't listeners, that's a cassette, if you know what that is. The tape playing over and over again in our heads, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's already the first step. Just being aware and having a desire to choose something differently, whether it's alcohol, shopping, whatever that is for you, food. I don't know what that is for the listener, right? But the conversation is the same. It doesn't mean that the substance necessarily has to be, but the conversation is the same. Just being self-aware, taking that first step. Okay, so then what do we do after that? We've already become self-aware. We want to make change. We know that we want to overcome something in our lives. That's step 2, because now you found the courage, right? Courage would be step 2, okay? And then the third thing would be action. So step 1 is becoming self-aware. Step 2 is you've already found the courage because you know you want to make change. That's the courage right there. And then step 3 is leaning into it with action.
Nice. Nice. What's one thing that you thought would be hard about becoming sober, but really wasn't? And then flip it. What's one thing you thought would be easy and then wound up being more challenging for you?
Okay, so sobriety, right? I mean, everybody thinks that you're not going to ever have any fun ever again because alcohol is such a social lubricant. And so for me, I'm a pretty fun person anyway. I like to have fun. I show up, pretty much sparkly personality anyway. So that was a huge thing that I thought, by me choosing to eliminate alcohol from my life, does it mean that I'm going to show up as a dull, burned out sparkler every time we go somewhere? And I found that just wasn't really the case, because this is me. This is my personality. This is who I am deep down on the inside. And so I do still show up as that fun, life of the party person. I just have something different in my glass today. So check, mark, awesome. Guess what? You still have fun even without alcohol. And then the flip side of that, what was something that I thought would be hard, but wasn't? The flip side of the question was, what was something that ended up being hard that I didn't think would be hard?
Yes.
And that is actually rebuilding my mortgage business.
Oh, wow.
And I'd like to elaborate on that for a second. When you first get sober, there's a lot of uncertainty within yourself, because you are walking a new, uncomfortable path. Right? And why is it uncomfortable? Because it's new. It's unusual. It's different. We're stepping outside of the norm. That's why, right? And so on that uncomfortable, unstable path, I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. I had to learn self-confidence. I also had to learn how to communicate with my referral partners. I wanted to make sure that I was building relationships out of authenticity, out of trust, out of loyalty. And those aren't really characteristics that you employ when, you're using or in active addiction, right? And so rebuilding trust and rebuilding relationships or actually leaning into new ones. That has been my big joy this past year. I feel like I have made new partnerships. I've made new relationships, and they're relationships built on authenticity. They're built on trust. They're built on depth. And that's how I choose to do my business today. I want to have a meaningful partnership with you where we collaborate together to meet our goals jointly. And if we're working in alignment, then it usually is a positive experience. It's when we're doing that tug of war that just isn't like we're trying to force something to make it work. That is out of alignment. And I'm just not interested in those types of relationships today. So there's a huge difference there. And there's a huge difference in the energy bandwidth for the two different type of partnerships.
Wow.
And so shifting that relationship was probably the hardest lesson that I learned in early sobriety. And I'm still evolving in that.
Wow. So if I'm hearing you correctly, then the alcohol played a role in how you were building your business, in your relationships. And then once you became sober, you didn't have that common ground anymore. So that you had to look for the self-confidence within and building authentic relationships within apart from the alcohol. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly right.
Wow. Wow.
That
That's
is exactly
incredible.
right. And think
Because
about
I would not have thought that alcohol would have been that ingrained or play that much of a role in relationships and what you're doing. But I guess in your business that it does.
In our mortgage business, right? Oftentimes, networking, happy hour events, anytime we're doing a celebration or if we're doing like a open house even, right? You might have mimosas at the open house. You've got, obviously networking events where you're having cocktails after work. And it was
Gotcha.
just such commonplace. And I think that people it was such a habit. It just happened like, oh, we got to go to this event. Okay, we're going to this on Wednesday. We're going to that one on Thursday. And then, well, it's Friday. So, and it's so interesting how we can get in these habits, the grooves of the record player. We can get in this repetitive behavioral habit without even recognizing it. Like every single week, it was the same behavior. Every single Tuesday, I had a networking event. Every single Wednesday, I had Wind Down Wednesday. Every single Thursday was Thirsty Thursday. And that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean? It can easily happen.
Yeah. What was some of the biggest realizations or kind of like revelations that you had when you found this newfound self-confidence and authenticity and just leaning into who you were apart from the alcohol? What was some of the biggest, surprises?
I don't think I've ever been so aware of my age until now. And the reason for that is because I look back and I'm like, wow, what did I accomplish over the past 20 years? And I've accomplished a lot in 20 years, right? But I feel like through all of those accomplishments, did I really have the connection that I have today? And those connections that I'm creating today are really filling me up. I'm living a fulfilled life. And I recognize that I'm at the second half of this journey, right, on this planet. And so there is a sense of why not now? Let's do it now. If we're going to go for it, now is the time. We need to go all in and go for it today because we're not promised tomorrow.
Yeah.
So for that, I think Well, I want to share one other story. My husband had a heart attack in November. He had a widowmaker heart attack. 1 in 400,000 people survive. He was the
Wow.
lucky one.
Wow.
That moment in time has impacted both of us, obviously, as it would, right? That's a huge shift. That's a huge change. That's one of those moments that you bump the record player and the record skips to the next song. And that's a beautiful time because I think it's made us both really aware of where we are in our lives. And so at this moment, I feel like, why not me? And if I'm going to go for it, the time is now. I'm not promised tomorrow. None of us are.
Yeah. Yeah. How beautiful is that? You talked about, and we'll circle back around to how booze-free babes took off and exploded. Talk a little bit about what happened around that.
So I actually was really surprised that we blew up as quickly as we did. And in that moment, I want to talk about like me stepping into the version of myself that it requires. In that moment, I realized that this was a much bigger calling. And then later it became a purpose. And it's always been a passion, but now I know it's my life's purpose. And it is a huge calling, and has been divinely guided. And I'll just leave that at that. When we first saw that huge increase in membership, that's when I knew that I needed to make sure that I was guiding this community in an aligned way. And so I actually went back and got my recovery certification. And I did that. I never knew that we were going to roll out a coaching component. I never knew that we were going to roll out workshops. This is all evolving, right? Yeah. And so I got my coaching certification because I wanted to be able to guide these women in a way that was going to be supportive for them. At the beginning, I was like, what do I know? Who am I? Right? But I do know because I walked this journey too. So I do have feedback, and I can share that experience, strength, and hope with these women and help guide them on their journey. Right. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to do it in an aligned clinical way. I wanted to make sure that I had the appropriate language for a multi-pathway approach to recovery. And that's what we do. We offer a multi-pathway approach.
Okay. All right. That's cool. Yeah. That finding that purpose and really leaning into that. I think that's a beautiful story to find. How does it feel to have your purpose and have it aligned with your passion?
I hope that everyone gets to experience that in their life, because there is something to be said about alignment and flow state. Creativity and magic lives there. That's the only way that I can explain it. And I know that when I'm walking my purpose and I'm living in my passion, that ideas just flow. Mm-hmm. Things just happen. Synchronicities happen. Coincidences. Everything lines up. I meet the right people like you, Sue. I mean, we were aligned through a mutual connection, So I just feel like when we're in flow state, magic happens. That's where it lives. And that's what's happening with my connection to the Booze Free Babes community. I'm in my flow state.
Yeah. And I would imagine that prior to that, go back 10 years. And look at yourself 10 years ago. Would you say you were in flow state and lived with purpose 10 years ago?
I think I always wanted to live with purpose. That was something I always had a desire about. I'm a philanthropic person at the core, right? But no, I was living hustle culture, right? Tech bro culture, the 5 a.m. workouts, the, sales call Monday, you know what I mean? It was insane. The energy and the intensity around that. See how just on this podcast, you can see the shift in my energy just when I talk about it, right? Mm-hmm. Before I was talking about flow state. Now I'm talking about hustle culture.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's tight. It's when you, and you know what, it goes back to practicing mindfulness as well. It's about being aware in the moment and actually being in tune with the energy that's in the room or in tune to the energy of the conversation. In my experience, I didn't come across this until a couple of years ago when I started realizing that, wait a minute, we do have these energy states. You do have high frequency and low frequency energy. And when you start looking at that and you start seeing it, then it just permeates all aspects of what you do, your life. When you think about it and the words we say, like just think about the energy in the words, like if you say something's depressing, well, there's a low energy right there just by saying the word depressing. And if you say fun and happiness and intentional fun, then there's just a smile that happens on the face. So I hope people listening hear that coming across in you as well. Like as we have this discussion, the things that light you up in your passion do pour over into the energy that you give off. I think that's really cool. We touched on this a little bit. So if you could go back in time and say to your younger self a message, what would it be and what would you say? Why?
I would say that you don't have to hustle for your worth, that you're already worthy and deserving. That would be my message to my younger self.
Yeah. How many of us live in that state? Hustle for your worth. You always have to prove that. Do you think that comes out of a perfectionist mentality?
I mean, I'm a perfectionist, so I would say so.
Good.
I'm also a Virgo, so we're like the closest thing to perfection that there is. I didn't know if you knew that, or it could just be that's like, something I've told myself. No, I'm just joking. I am a perfectionist, and a coach many years ago told me that done is better than perfect.
Yes. Well, I'm a recovering perfectionist. I am the same. I think that is just the type A personality where you just run after that. And I had to get to a point where the same thing, done is better than perfect. And that's just from programming. I heard that a while ago. Done is better than perfect. And oh gosh, I can't think of the word at the moment, but part of that record player going over and over again is that there's no such thing as perfect. When we realize that perfection can't be achieved, you can strive for it, but you can't achieve it, it changes how you play the game.
So I think I would choose the word alignment over perfection today.
Yeah.
Does it feel aligned?
Agreed.
Does the energy match? Then, okay, this is the direction that I want to go. I still am a perfectionist. I feel like on some things, you just want the visuals to be right.
You want the best. Well, here's the thing. The thing about perfectionism is that the underlying driver is that you want to give it your best. You want to give it your all. The thing that you're doing is a reflection of who you are. So we all want to show the best version of ourselves, and it translates often into the word perfectionism or perfect. I want it to be perfect because it's a reflection of me, and if it's not perfect, then it's a reflection of me, and I'm not. But when we tell ourselves that, wait a minute, there is no such thing as perfect, but did I give it my all? Yes. Was it in alignment? Like you said, if it's in alignment to what you're supposed to do, you're going to give it your best anyway, because you're in alignment. So you're just going to achieve that level of doneness, that level of perfectionism just by doing something that you're in alignment with. I think. Correct. Yeah. It just feels that way. So that's cool. So you talked about, talk about the purpose of Booze Free Babes, and how can, if somebody's listening, it's like, wow, this is a really cool community for me, but how do I know if this is for me? Talk a little bit more about that.
I would definitely invite anyone that's listening to check us out on social first, right? And just see if you align with the content. Booze Free Babes, originally, the mission behind Booze Free Babes is a pathway to healing and healing modalities. And so what we like to do is share resources. We're really a hub for recovery resources, but not just recovery resources, because we want to also expose people to different healing modalities, whether that is hypnotherapy, maybe that's Psych K, maybe it's EMDR, maybe it's, Women for Sobriety, maybe, there's all these different pathways that you can take. It's not like we have to pigeonhole everyone into the rooms. And I just want that message to be clear, that there is a multi-pathway approach to healing, not just recovery, but to healing. And so a lot of people may not be aware of a lot of the modalities or tools that can be available to help you on your own journey, what that looks like for you. What worked for me may not work for you. What worked for you may not work for me. But you know what? It's my responsibility to share that, so that way I can extend that branch to you and say, I see you, sister. I see you hurting. I see that you're in pain. Let me offer you some resources that may be able to help you align with your healing pathway.
Yeah.
That's really what we are about. And so the podcast created a vehicle for us to start the conversation with different practitioners. So what you can expect from the podcast is definitely healing journey stories, right? We've got a lot of stories from the Babes community. But in addition to that, we have a lot of stories with people that are offering services or modalities that can help people heal, because it may be something you never heard of before, right? Like I haven't experienced EMDR yet, but I'm so excited to learn more about it, right? And so that is a lot of people I know who have experienced it, right? I'm so excited to share it because I don't know anything about it. I went to a meeting this week. It was for a different modality, and I had never been to it before. And another one of our colleagues, one of our admins in the Babes, she had it. She swore by it. So I was like, you know what? I need to check it out for myself. Let me get the workbook. Let me see what it's all about. I want to learn more, because that's just me. I'm going to always be a student for life. But if it teaches me something that I can then share with another sister on her journey, and then that can help her, and then she can extend that, and she becomes an empowered babe that can extend that knowledge to the next one. That's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah, that's amazing when you think about it. It just kind of like, you're not just affecting one person, but then that person goes and affects somebody else. And it's almost like that, if you throw a rock in the middle of an ice pond and how the cracks just go out in all different directions. You never know what life you're going to touch. And I love the fact that you acknowledge there is more than one way to accomplish a goal, and that we are all different, and it's okay if people take different paths to get there. I think that's a beautiful message right there. And that it also gives people hope too, because if you've tried something and it doesn't work, instead of giving up, take the perspective of, well, wait a minute, I just don't have the right thing yet in order to help me accomplish my goal. So.
And at the end of the day, I'm just going to add this little tidbit. At the end of the day, right, like all pathways lead us back to ourselves.
True.
So, if it's a modality that helps us do that inner work, and whichever modality is going to be easily accessible for you. When I had the weight loss surgery, I had to lean into an exercise program, and I was 100 pounds heavier at the time. So to lean in, to go back to Orange Theory was not a solution at that time for me. I didn't feel like I could do that yet. I leaned into yoga, and I started slowly. And I started with an easy beginner class, and then I started adding more challenge and working my way up. And it's the same thing with anything else, right? We got to start somewhere, and then
Small steps,
big wins, baby.
There you go. I love it. Yeah, I think that's great. What is something that very few people agree with you on?
Abstinence removes the noise, and I'll elaborate on that. There's a lot of questions. Like, first of all, the Booze Free Babes community, we're a sober curious community, so you can come in however you are, judgment-free zone. Like, we accept you however you are. We just want to walk alongside you on your journey. The conversation about abstinence, right, that obviously comes up, and people want to remain sober curious, which is totally fine. You can take whatever pathway you want for yourself. But for me, I found that abstinence removed the chatter in my brain, the negotiations that we make with ourselves, right? It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Are we going to drink on a Friday night? Are we going to make our Saturday morning workout? Are we going to be hungover for that event? Like those types of things. The negotiation is exhausting. And when we remove the substance altogether, it removes the clutter and the chatter between our ears, which also helps regulate our central nervous system, right? Because if we have a regulated central nervous system, then we're not like spaz addicts, right?
Yeah.
And so that's probably the biggest thing, is regulating the central nervous system so that way I can show up in peace and calm. And removing that internal chatter helps do that.
Yeah. Well, then you don't have to negotiate. Like you said, you don't have to negotiate with yourself. Should I do this? Should I stop at one? Should I go for some more? Or, yeah.
It's
Wow.
exhausting,
It's
right?
amazing how much we can put on ourselves with that internal chatter. And it doesn't have, it's not just alcohol. It's that those areas in our life that we compromise with or contend with. And if we could just come to peace with those things. And a lot of times, do you find that that mental chatter has to do with things that you're not in alignment with?
Yes. Okay, because think of it like this. Okay, say you're a teenager, you've got a boyfriend, he's not giving you attention, whatever, right? And so then you're like, obviously that's not in alignment. And that match is not in alignment, right? But are you going to continue to chase after this boy? And this is fresh on my mind because I've got, a teenage daughter. But are you going to continue to chase after that boy, or what are you going to do, right? And so the juxtaposition to that, I guess. I lost my track. I forgot where we were going on that one. I got sidetracked when I started talking about like teenage version of myself, right? Whatever.
Yeah, I think it's if you look at the situation and you ask yourself, what kind of chatter, what kind of internal dialogue am I having around this thing? Is it a constructive dialogue or is it a destructive dialogue? And what I hear you saying is that when you have that substance abuse, and in that case alcohol, it's a destructive dialogue, because you're filling your mind with something that you don't need to. If you remove that, not only will you get the health benefits from it, but then you also remove destructive dialogue, and it gives it space for your brain to have constructive dialogue.
Exactly. Thank you for picking up the pieces there. I kind of lost track.
No, it's fine. I do it too. I mean, it is what it is, right?
What came up when you were saying that is the shoulda, coulda, woulda, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Getting rid of the shoulda, coulda, woulda, stop shoulding on ourselves.
Yes.
I'm sure you've heard that
I love
before.
that shop. The other I love is, I hear people say, well, I'm going to try and do that. And I remember Yoda, the famous, Yoda's famous quote, do or do not, there is no try. And when we put that wishy-washy language into our life, then it opens up that possibility for uncertainty. No, either you're going to do that thing or you're not going to do that thing. Why compromise your integrity?
Right. And in that uncertainty, I think that's already the answer. That's what I was alluding
Sure.
to earlier, is that when we
Sure.
have that uncertainty in the conversation, that we're going back and forth, that's already our answer, right? We
Yeah.
already know. We already know the
true.
answer internally.
Yeah, that's true. Ellen, as we wind down a little bit and we come to a close, I like to ask my guests the following 3 questions. So here we go. Please share a book or resource that's had a significant impact on you.
I've got 2.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's fine.
2 that really impacted my early journey would be Naked Mind by Annie Grace and Quit Like a Woman by Holly Whitaker. Both of them really address the marketing engine behind the alcohol industry. And I think that it's an eye-opening conversation to have, not meant for this podcast, but it's worth diving into. If you're going to partake, at least understand that you're being brainwashed to do it.
Wow. Yeah. We could just remove alcohol and insert any other kind of vice into that as well. And, there's probably some truth behind a lot of that. What is one question or topic you wish I would have asked about, and how would you have answered the question or expanded on the topic?
Oh, wow. That's a great juicy one, isn't it? So what's interesting is that, when I come on a podcast about Booze-Free Babes, of course I want to talk about that, right? And that journey and what that looks like. And this conversation actually took a little bit of a turn for me, I feel like. And so we started talking about like themes of just like happiness and life and inner dialogue and self-talk, which is all part of the same conversation. But I think like leaning into that a little bit more would be cool, right? So maybe a topic for another one.
Yeah, that's what more podcasts are for, So
Right.
I love the question though, because I've got a wide range of answers to it, but there's no right or wrong. As we close, what is one small step that someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
Choose joy. And that might look as small as choosing strawberry jam this morning instead of, I don't know, some other berry jam, right? Like that brings you more joy. Like, if something feels good. Choosing a cup of coffee that maybe has a little bit of flavoring in it because it feels good. And that's a very small example, but maybe it's taking that 15-minute break and taking a walk around the block. Just choose joy in the moment. Maybe on that walk, you happen to walk past some flowers. Maybe you sniff the flower, I don't know what that looks like for you in your walk and your journey for today, but my hope for you is that you choose joy with every step, because one step closer to joy has a huge, significant impact on the rest of your day, and those days add up.
Oh, I love it. I love them all. Ellen, how can people find you?
EllenFrazier.com is probably the easiest way to get to all the things. That's going to show you the booze-free. It'll lead you to Booze-Free Babes. You can also go to boozefreebabes.co, boozefreebabes.co, and then that'll also align you with all of the social media, the coaching, the Facebook group, all the things.
Oh, perfect. All righty. Well, Ellen, thank you so much for the gift of your time. This has been amazing. I enjoyed every moment of our conversation.
Thank you, Sue, for having me. This has been such a joy, and I look forward to future conversations with you.
Same here.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me, and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, love yourself, then love others. Peace.